Yeah, let's do Terumos.
Okay.
Um,
Vav Aleph.
yeah, sounds. Actually, no. Just try Hey Zion.
I'm sorry.
Hey Zion,
Why do I have? Oh, because this is
because that's those are the new ones today.
hold
Are Vav Aleph. Don't
on.
worry,
I did it
that's
yesterday,
okay.
and I haven't checked off. I did the same thing yesterday. At least I repeat myself. All right. Um, okay. If a saw of truma fell into 100, and one lifted it out, and another one fell in, and he lifted it out, and another one fell in, it is permitted until the truma exceeds the chulin. If a saw of truma fell into 100, and before one could lift it out, another fell in, it's forbidden. But Reb Shimon permits. And if a saw of truma fell into 100, and one ground them, and they became less, just as the chulin becomes less, the truma became less, it's permitted. If a saw of truma fell into less than 100, and one ground them, and they increased, just as the chulin increased to the truma, so the truma increased, it's forbidden. If it is known that the chulin wheat is superior to that of the truma, it is permitted. If a sore of truma fell in into less than 100, and chulin fell in there afterwards, it's accidentally it is permitted. If intentionally, it's forbidden.
Okay, right,
You got to go. You got to get to work. Okay.
right. So,
Uh,
Perek Vav Mishnah Aleph. Ochel Truma Shogeg. Um, So now these are the halachas if a Yisrael went and accidentally ate some truma, what does he have to do? Mishalem keren v'chomesh. He has to pay not only the principal, but he also has to add on a fifth, which is actually a quarter. But at the end of it, it turns out to be a fifth. Okay, echad ha'ochel ve'echad ha'shose ve'echad ha'sach. And it doesn't matter whether he eats it or drinks it or puts it on his skin. Echad truma tahora, echad truma tamei. And it doesn't matter if it is tahor or tamei, he still has to repay it. Meshalem chumsha, the chomish chumsha. He has to pay the chomish on top of it, and not only that, if he then accidentally ate the chomish, even the chomish is got the full din of truma. So then he would have to put on the chomish onto the chomish. So it works recursively. Obviously, if it gets eventually, it's going to get to a trivial size because it's a disappearing series. But the principle is that the chomish itself takes on the full kedusha of truma. Einu meshalim truma ela chulin metukanim. He can now. Let's say he's a Yisrael whose maternal grandfather was a Kohen, and he inherited some truma because let's say his grandfather had only daughters, and then so the Yerusha passes down to his mother, and then down to him, because he is going to inherit his mother. So now he's got truma that's legitimately his. Okay, now so let's say he now accidentally ate somebody else's truma. So he says, "Oh, let me replace it with truma." You can't do that. He has to give it from chulin, which then becomes truma. So what he did was you can look at it this way, that he diminished from the amount of good truma in the world, and now he's got to replace it with chulin, and it's got to be chulin that's already been mastered.
okay.
So
So
okay, that's why chulin metukanim. So like 100% edible truma that Israel's allowed to eat, not just chulin that's sitting waiting for Maser Shani to be taken off or something like that. Okay, v'heim nasim truma, and this now becomes truma. V'hatashlumin truma, and the v'hatashlumin truma. What did this add actually now? Tashlumin truma. If he went back and ואם חז ואכל בשוגג עשה חולין ששילם, שהוא משלם tumersam afhem nasin truma. So again, that's also recursive. If he accidentally eats the replacement truma that he made, then again that'll also have to be replaced with keren b'chomesh. And if the coin whose truma he ate says, "Nah, forget about it. I'm mochel. You don't have to pay me back." It's not his right. He doesn't have the right to be mochel on this truma. There's a ritual obligation over here for him to replace the truma that he accidentally ate. Okay, we'll see that's distinct from the case of where he did it b'mezid, but we'll save that for another Mishnah.
Okay.
And Mishnah base, Bas Yisrael she'achla truma. So now we have again, she's a Bas Yisrael, and she ate truma, but before she's paid it back, now she gets married to a kohen. So which means that now she's an Ashes kohen, she's allowed to eat truma. So what? So now her options just got a little broader. Okay, if it was truma that was sitting waiting to be given to a kohen but hadn't actually been given to a kohen yet, okay, then she can take the chulin and make a keren and a chomesh and give it to herself. Right, because nobody else has any legal right to it. So then since she's legally entitled to truma, so she can give it to herself. But if it was truma that already belonged to another kohen, then she only has to give the principal to the kohen who owned the original truma, but she can give the chomesh to herself. Because the general principle is that if a Yisrael eats truma b'shogeg, then he has to give the principal to the owner, but the chomesh he can give to any kohen he wants. Okay, you with us?
So that fifth she doesn't keep.
The fifth? The fifth.
The chomesh, yeah, she doesn't. That one she doesn't keep.
If she's a bas kohen, she gets to pay it to herself.
Right. But in this case here.
But this is like a Stam Yisrael who has a who ate truma. He has if it belongs to a kohen, he has to give back the principal to that kohen. But the chomesh he could give to any other kohen he wants. Okay. Mishnah Gimel. So you've got an employer who's supposed to be feeding his workers, and he's got, or else he's got guests, and he's supposed to be feeding his guests. And what did he do? He accidentally fed them truma. Okay, so now who's liable for this? You would have thought that the employer or the host is liable, but actually not entirely so. Who mishalem is a keren, v'hei mishalem is a chomesh divrei Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir says that the person who provided the food has to pay the keren, but the people who ate it, excuse me, the people who ate it have to pay the chomesh. All right, where Chachamim say no. Hey mishalem keren v'chomesh, v'hu mishalem lahem demei sudasan. So say Chachamim, the rule is it doesn't matter how you came to eat it, whose fault it was that you ate it. The fact is that the person who ate it b'shogeg is the one who has to replace the truma, and so it's his ritual obligation to replace it. It wasn't nobody's blaming anyone, but this is just who the obligation devolves on. Now they can come separately to the Baalim and say, you owe us food. We ate food that we did. You must. We've had to now pay out for the truma.
Mm-hmm.
So now you must give us some a value of the meal. So they've got a separate claim on him.
Okay.
See, so where now there's a difference between the two. Is that if the Baalim have to pay the keren, then he has to take chulin and turn that into truma. So effectively his penalty is the value of chulin, which is higher than that of truma.
Isn't that truma usually kept in a separate place in a something that's marked that says truma on it so that he knows?
Of course.
Right. So how could he make that mistake?
He did.
He did. All right.
It doesn't matter how he did.
He did. Okay.
The halach is full of shilas like that. Like, how could that happen? How could such a thing be? Never mind about how could it be. It happened. And now look. I mean, a lot of the Mishnah will be hypothetical.
Right.
Because what's the case? So we had earlier in Terumos, we had the case where somebody said, "Oops, I just dropped some truma in, but it's batal." Okay. Oops, I just dropped another one in, and but it's batal. Oops, how many times can you drop truma into the same pile?
Right.
Okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how it happened. What we're learning here is a principle.
Okay.
Okay. Um,
Gimel. Okay.
that's it.
Right.
Fine. Let's go back to Gimel Ches.
Yes. If one intended to say Truma but said Maisa but said Truma, Ola, but he said Shlomin, but he said Ola, that I shall not go into this house, but he said into that one, that I shall not derive benefit from this one, but he said that one, and he has said nothing until his mouth and heart agree. A non-Jew, Truma is Truma. Their Maestras are Maestra, and the hallowed things are holy. Rabbi Yehuda says Kerem Mavai does not apply to a non-Jew, but the Chachamim say it applies. The Truma of a non-Jew renders Meduma and is liable to the added fifth, but Reb Shimon exempts. If one separates part of Truma and Maestras, he may take from it Truma for it, but he may not for another place. But Meir says he may take Truma and Maestras also for another place. Okay. Okay.
Shvius Gimel Hey.
Shavuos is less than 2 weeks. I can't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Not that I've been counting, just. Oh my gosh, it's so fast. All right, we have Gimel Hay. Man may not open a quarry in his field for the first time unless there are three layers which are 3 by 3 and 3 high, and a total of 27 stones. If a wall has 10 stones, each a load for 2 men, these may be removed. The measurement of a wall is 10 tefakim, and less than this he cuts it and may level it to within not less than 1 tefach from the ground. When is this the case? From his own, but when his neighbors he may remove whatever he wishes. When is this the case? If he did not begin in the 6th year, but if he began in the 6th year, he may remove whatever he wishes. Stones which the plow turned up, or which were covered, or are now laid bare, if there are 2, each a load for 2 men, they may be removed. If one clears stones from his field, he may take the top ones, but he must leave those which touch the ground. Likewise, a heap of pebbles or a pile of stones, he may take the top ones, but must leave those which touch the ground. If there is a rocky road or straw underneath them, they may be removed. Okay.
Brachas Beis Dalet.
Okay. Skilled workmen read while on the top of a tree or on a row of bricks, which they are not permitted to do in reciting tefillah. The skilled worker read while on the top of a tree. A bridegroom is exempt from reciting Shema from the first night until the first Saturday night. If he had not performed the deed, it happened in the case of Rabbi Gamliel that he read the Shema on the first night following his wedding. His disciples said to him, "Have you not taught us, O Master, that a bridegroom is exempt from reading the Shema on the first night?" He said to them, "I shall not listen to you to absolve myself from the kingdom of heaven, even for a moment." He bathed on the first night following the death of his wife. His disciples asked him, "Did you not teach us, our rabbi, that a mourner is forbidden to bathe?" He said to them, "I am not like the rest of men. I am a delicate person."
Istanis.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And when Tavi, his slave,
No, that's
died.
it. That's it. We're.
Oh, it's not.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
All right. How did his disciples know that he said Shema on his wedding night? Said it out in the hallway. Said out. This would be a private time for him.
I don't know. He's at the chuppah or whatever. It was
I know it.
they were at the dance afterwards, and
I
he
know it happened. It happened. Don't ask questions. It happened. All right. We are in Oleos. Um, the following items also spread tumah and act as barriers against tumah: ledges, balconies, dovecotes, overhanging boulders, and rocks, windows for light, sharp rocks, and branch canopies, and protrusions that can support light plasterwork. These are the words of Rameya. The Kakaman said medium plasterwork. A bird that is resting. Oh, I went the wrong way again. Which are branch canopies, a tree that overhangs the ground, and water protrusions that extend out from a fence. These items spread tumah but do not act as barriers against tumah. A chest, a box, a cabinet, a large straw basket, a large reed basket, and the water tank of an Alexandrian ship. If they do not have flat bottoms, or if they do not contain 40 saw of liquid, which is 2 quarts of dry measure, a curtain, a work apron, a bed cover, a sheet, matting, and a mat, if they have not been made into tents, the carcass of a domesticated or wild animal, and food that become tame. In addition to these, a mill powered by a person spreads tuma but does not block tuma. These are items that act as barriers against tuma but do not convey tuma. A loom that is ready for weaving, the ropes of a bread, garbage baskets, and window bars. That's
Right,
it.
so they form a barrier because the holes are smaller than because the holes are less than 3 tvachim. Is that right? Because the holes are less than 3 tvachim between them, it's kind of lavud in order to stop the tumah going up, but it's not enough to spread the tumah and make an oil, because it's nonetheless it's still a porous barrier. Okay.
Adios.
Adios.
If a person is lying under a gap, Beis Shammai says he does not spread tuma, but Beis Hillel says a person is hollow, and thus the upper side of his body does spread tuma. Rabbi Yehuda says 6 matters are among the lenient decisions of Beis Shammai and the stringent decisions of Beis Hillel. The blood of nevelos, Beis Shammai's rules that it's tahor, while Beis Hillel says it is tameh. An egg found in a nevela, if there are similar eggs to this one being sold in the market, is permitted, but if not, it's forbidden, according to the words of Beis Shammai. However, Beis Hillel forbids, but Beis Shammai concedes that the egg is a treifa. In a treifa is forbidden because it developed in a forbidden state. Uterine blood of a Gentile woman and toher blood of a mitzaris after childbirth. Beis Shammai renders both tahor, but Beis Hillel says her blood is like the spittle and like her urine. One may eat Shemitah produce with gratitude or without gratitude, according to the words of Beis Shammai, but Beis Hillel says one may not eat the produce without gratitude.
Right, and we can remember that we saw that actually recently in Shvius, that that this was the machlokes in if you take a look, let's just go back to Shvius at the Mishna in Shvius, because this was the machlokes among the Tanaim. Let's just see where's this actually held. They listed here. Yes, I just wanted to get that back reference because yeah, it's in Dalet base, Shvius Dalet base.
Okay.
Base, it says Beis Shammai omrim ein ochlin peres Shvius betova, or Beis Hillel omrim ochlin betova v'shelo betova. Rabbi Yehuda omer chiluf hadvarim. It's only Rabbi Yehuda who says it's the other way around. Zo mikole Beis Shammai u'michumer Beis Hillel. So now we're seeing the corollary of that in this Mishnah over here, where this is Rabbi Yehuda's Mishnah, where he adds to the list of things where Beis Hillel is machmir.
Leather jug. Beis Shammai says if it remains closed. Beis Hillel says even though it does not remain closed. Rabbi Yossi says 6 matters are among the lenient decisions of Beis Shammai and the stringent decisions of Beis Hillel. Fowl may go up upon the table with cheese, but may not be eaten with cheese, according to the words of Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel says it may not go up and it may not be eaten. We separate olives as truma for olive oil and grapes as truma for wine. In accordance with the words of Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel say we may not separate them as truma. If one plants within 4 amos of a vineyard, Beis Shammai says he has condemned 1 row, but Beis Hillel says he has condemned 2 rows. Beis Shammai exempts it from kala, but Beis Hillel obligates it. We perform immersion in a torrent of rainwater running down a steep mountain slope, according to the words of Beis Shammai, but Beis Hillel says we may not perform immediate immersion there. Convert who converted on the eve of Pesach, Beis Shammai says he immerses and eats his Pesach offering that night. Beis Hillel says one who separates from the foreskin is like one who separates from the grave.
Okay, which means that basically he's tamei for 7 days, even though he's just converted. So we don't give him any leniencies this year, because he might remember next year when he's been for his second Pesach, he thinks, oh, but I was tamei mace then and I didn't need to wait 7 days, so now I don't need to wait 7 days now either. So because the ger is new to this kind of stuff, we're machmir on him to make sure that he doesn't, that in the case he's really tamei next year, he doesn't make the same mistake. Okay, Moed Katan, base Aleph.
If one turned over one who turned over his olives to soften them, and then mourning befell him, or an accident befell him, or his workers misled him, he may place the first beam and leave it until after the festival. This is the opinion of Reb Yehuda. Reb Yossi says he may pour the olives into the press, complete the process, and seal the barrels in his usual manner. Similarly, one whose wine was in the vat and then mourning befell him, or an accident befell him, or his workers misled him, may pour the wine into barrels, complete his process, and seal the barrels in his usual manner. This is the opinion of Reb Yossi. Reb Yehuda says he may cover the barrels with boards so that the wine does not sour. A person may bring in his fruit because of thieves, and remove his flax from the soaking pond so they did not become ruined, provided he does not plan his work for Kol HaMoed. In all these cases, if they plan their work for Kol HaMoed, it may be forfeited.
Right. So we punish somebody who says, "I'll leave it till Chol HaMoed, and then I'll say it's a davar aved." And he said, "No, so you're going to lose it now." It's only if he discovers the davar aved on Chol HaMoed, and he said, "Okay, what must I do now?" So, okay, you've got a davar aved, now you've got a hair tear. But that's only if he didn't plan it that way.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Have a lovely day.
Have a good day at work.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.